Welcome to Order Militarist Radio TV, and we are lifelong Catholics, and what we do is all for free, and for our love of Jesus Christ, and for our Holy Mother, the Church, who will offend our Holy Mother, the Church. Today we're going to be talking on Archbishop James Gibbons of Baltimore and Archbishop John Ireland of St. Paul, Minnesota, on our continued series on the CIA's doctrinal warfare program, Change the Catholic Church. And we are with Brother Alexis Bonello.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV. And this in-depth documentary investigation is something that's going to realign your whole understanding of the history of the Catholic Church in the modern world and in the United States. So we've talked about the mastermind, Henry Luce, and his Mata Hari wife, Clara Booth Luce. And they're the ones that cooked up the idea. They launched it in 48 and 53. The US government puts it in action. But it was prepared. The way for this was prepared with a lot of Americanist Catholics. And one of the most influential of all Americanist Catholics was Archbishop Gibbons of Baltimore, who with his mentor Spalding ruled the Archdiocese of Baltimore for 80 years. So we're going to tell you something about, let's begin by saying, who was Gibbons? Where was he born? Who was his mother and his grandmother?
Yeah, so he was born to he was born to James Walsh. And he was born to James Walsh, and Mrs. Horn was her surname. Now we did some looking. Walsh literally means Welshman, but it also has Jewish ties because it is also a Jewish surname. And so is Horn, Horan. So,
and these are the parents of his mother.
And his father is Gibbons. He was born in Ireland. Same with John Ireland, but it is interesting to note that James Cardinal Gibbons of Baltimore has Jewish roots. And not only in his family, but his coat of arms.
Yeah, his coat of arms is really strange. And AJ, you're going to share his coat of arms on the show page. And so I'll describe it. On the right side of the coat of arms, he has 6 heads of a beast. It looks kind of like a lion, but it's not normally covered. And if you add up the number of ears, the number of eyes, the number of tongues, you get 666. Each head of the beast represents the number 6. There's 3 of them. Now, maybe that's just a coincidence, but on the right side of the coat of arms, as the arm bearer would be wearing it, there's the checkered pattern of the white and blue. Now, the checkered pattern is the symbol of is what's on a floor in a Masonic lodge, and on his checkered pattern, he places a star, which is also used by the Masons, right under the symbol of his mitre, as if to say, I'm a Masonic bishop, I've been in the lodge. Now, maybe that's coincidental, but then above his shield, he has 3 symbols. He has the mitre, Episcopal cross, and the bishop's staff. And if you count all the bumps and dots on those 3 things, plus all the stems, and add the 3 things, you get the number 33, which is also Masonic. They use that for the 1/3 of the angels who were cast out of heaven. So there are 3 potentially Masonic significations on his shield, not just 1, 3. And it shouldn't surprise you then that Gibbons was an Americanist. He felt like the perfection of Catholicism was submitting to the American Masonic system. Maybe, AJ, you can tell us something about his influence, how he promoted that.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with this excellent talk by a German Catholic priest in Cologne at the General Convention of German Catholics held in Cologne, Germany. It's given by Father Henry Tappert. On August 26, 1894, he showed how liberalism, which is the basis for American ideology, dampened efforts at conversion, removed Christianity, and as the basis of public policy, and helped to destroy ethnic solidarity in favor of individual as supreme in all things. So this is what Father Tappert said. Since our enemies kept up their sorry courage to concentrate their criminal attacks on a man from the center who had been highly useful to the German Catholic immigrants, you will permit me to explain our attitude towards the ecclesiastics and religious political questions, which have so prominently occupied the Catholic mind recently in the United States. Our great enemy is liberalism, the denial of the social kingdom of Christ on earth. This great heresy of our time is threefold. First, avowed unbelief. Second, social rationalism. Last but not least, an ecclesiastical liberalism, which here and there blocks their way. It holds sway over certain Catholics who have inscribed on their banner union of the church with the age, with modern ideas, with Americanism. Hence, extolling of modern liberties, not as requisite for justified tolerance, but as an ideal of political and ecclesiastical wisdom. Hence, the more than sparring attitude of this third kind of liberalism towards the secret societies, hence the unreasonable breaking away from the sane Catholic tradition. In the temperance and liquor question, hence, finally to co-quetting with a more or less general all-embracing Christianity, to which a far-reaching expression was given at the Chicago Religious Parliament of unholy memory. From the same source originates those fulsome praises for the public schools and that ridiculous boastfulness about Americanism, which is not ashamed to reproach foreign-born co-religionists with an attachment to the language and customs of their fathers, and brand them publicly as being opposed to the English language and devoid of love for country. And this was his comments, which with a reference to what became known as the Cahinsley question, which involved Cardinal Gibbons' attack on the movement by German Catholic immigrants to the United States to obtain priests and bishops of the same ethnicity of their flocks. According to Tapper, Gibbons' actions amounted to the forced assimilation of Catholics into liberal society known as America, even if acceptance of American ideology led assimilation and loss of ethnic identity. Gibbons claimed that immigrant Catholics needed to share a common respect for rights, a common faith in perpetuity of their institutions, belief in the liberty which gave every man a chance, and a common aspiration for a greater America, which was an example and blessing to the world. The Church in America was responsible for leading Catholics forward to the community of language, social custom, and political idealism, which were essential to their own welfare and the nation's safety. The sentiments sounded noble and innocent enough, but Gibbons' Americanism led Catholic immigrants to accept America as good rather than to work to convert it, as Archbishop John Hughes vociferously demanded in 1850.
And this it was the program that the Irish hierarchy pushed for the next century. Gibbons lived and died long before my time, youth of my grandfather. But I can tell you that the influence of the Irish clergy in the United States is supreme. For generations, no one but Irish bishops, Irishmen were consecrated bishops. If you go to Catholic-hierarchy.org, you'll see that Gibbons only laid hands on Irishmen to make them bishops. At the time of Pius X, there was in New England a big French Catholic movement that wanted French-speaking dioceses, 3 of them for New England, and they built cathedrals in New Bedford. They built another huge church in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, and I think was the third one is, and there was supposed to be cathedrals for the new French diocese, but it was under Pius X that plan got nixed, and they were forced to amalgamate with the Irish-controlled diocese. And in the next 80 years, you'll see Irish bishops consistently, one after the other, shut down all the French parishes, the Italian parishes, the Polish parishes, and the German parishes, going to the point many times of ransacking the altars, the sacred images, and selling them. The German Catholic community in downtown of Boston. And so this was a agenda of clergy in the United States. And they wanted amalgamation, they wanted conformity, they wanted homogenization, so they could control the Catholics in America with one language. If you had Catholics speaking different languages, that would just be too cumbersome to infiltrate them and control their thought. And so Gibbons was the big promoter of this agenda, which served the deep state, what we call now the deep state, the Masonic lodges, so well.
Yeah. So Gibbons was so bold and so evil enough that he went and gave an interview to a German magazine, Frankfurter Zeitung. He sided with Americans. He said, "The Americans are striving for developing into one great nationality. This explains the propaganda for one language, the English tongue, in the Catholic Church of North America." He went on to say that he had been pressured by the political authorities of the United States concerning this matter, and that he and other Catholic prelates had bowed to the pressure. Gibbons, Ireland, and Archbishop John Keane of the newly formed Catholic University of America joined in attacking the Germans in Cahensley. They held that the German church in America would not convert to Protestants, that a Catholic church composed of foreigners was viewed as foreign institution, and hence a menace to the existence of the nation. Gibbons called for a meeting of the archbishops in Philadelphia to protest the demands of the Archangel Raphael Society. He stated that parishes should not exist with the distinction of nationality, and privileges should not be given any nationality. Are you there, brother? I believe we have lost Brother Alexis Bonolo.
Mm-hmm. So they first began an attack on all the native languages. She shows how hypocritical they are.
Yeah.
So they're attacking any mass where the songs might be in French or in Italian or in Polish. Did you lose me?
Yeah, for a little bit, but
you have me back?
Yeah. Okay. There we go. We're coming back. We're still here, folks. Technical difficulties. We're touching too many third rails.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So
So you were talking about how he was working to get all the churches and parishes that were.
I want to point out the hypocrisy of Gibbons. So he was dead set against parish where the mass was in Latin and which is, in Polish. But after the council, he and his ilk, his Episcopal offspring were like, they're against Latin, but they want the vernacular. But you got to see what they mean by the vernacular. They mean the national language that the Masons choose for government.
Mm-hmm.
This is why they want the mass in English. It's not because it's your language. It's because it's the language of the Masonic state. So here now you understand the whole move to move the liturgy into the vernacular, where it comes from. It comes from a hierarchy that is like this with the Masonic state, and that wants to help that state control the church. And it has nothing to do with helping you understand the mass. It has everything so that you can be preached to obey the Masonic state in your own language. That's what it's all about. And so that they could easily do that and move their clergy around. It's also hard to move Irish pedophile priests into a German or Italian parish if he has to know German or Italian. So the system works very well. Mm-hmm. And the Irish destroyed the church in America, the Irish bishops, led by Gibbons. And maybe I really shouldn't call him Irish if his grandmother was Jewish.
Yeah.
And his mother was Jewish.
Yeah. And we all know that Pope Leo XIII came down against Americanism, but there is this one letter that he signed where he sided with the Americanist bishops against Father Hensley and Archangel Raphael Society, which support the immigrant Catholics. In a letter dated July 4th, 1891, he declared the existing laws for the selection of bishops were to be observed without modification, and that no toleration could be accorded to practices which had arisen in opposition to those laws. And then a week later, Gibbons reported to the President of the United States on the outcome of the Hensley question, and the President seemed to be much pleased in receiving this information. Now, in 1891, there was a certain cardinal who was the Secretary of State of Leo XIII, Archbishop Rampolo.
Yeah, Rampolo, who was the arch Freemason in the Vatican at the time. So, did Pope Leo understand what he was signing? Or was he asked to sign something? Because it sounds very innocuous. We must keep the same rules. But that is like saying we shouldn't let new immigrants become bishops, which does not make sense. It's not like these people were converts to Catholicism. They come from countries that are like more than 1,000 years older in their national identity than the United States.
Yeah.
But from then on, we see nearly all Irish bishops in the United States, with the exclusion of all others. And even in religious orders, if you weren't Irish, you just didn't get promoted. And that's the way it was.
So, in another letter from Gibbons to Monsignor Dennis O'Connell, the Americanist rector at the North American College in Italy, Gibbons cited President Harris as saying, "I have followed the question with profound interest and regard it as a subject of deep importance to our country at large, one in which the American people are much concerned. I have also conversed on the subject with Mr. Tracy, a member of my cabinet. Foreign and unauthorized interference with American affairs cannot be viewed with indifference. I was very much pleased with the opinion which you expressed publicly in the matter. This is no longer a missionary country, like others which needed missionaries from abroad. It has an authorized hierarchy, well-established congregations of all men. The bishops of the church should be in full harmony with the political institutions and sentiments of the country."
Can you imagine the hypocrisy of Archbishop Gibbons, who's an Irishman who was born in Ireland, saying that we should only have bishops born in America, and therefore we cannot have Jews or can't have Germans or Italians or Hispanics or whatever other ethnicity of Poles he throws into that. So that's just total hypocrisy. The Irish aren't native born to North America any more than anyone else is. So you see the little trick of hands. It sounds reasonable, but it doesn't jive with the facts on the ground.
Yeah.
And Gibbons knew that. And so what do they mean by the American people? You know, what does the president mean by the American people? And why is the Archbishop rushing to Washington, D.C. to inform the president about an internal affair of the Catholic Church? Is he serving the Pope or is he serving the Masonic state?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty obvious who he's serving.
Yeah. And it just keeps going on. Yeah, we can keep going here. Gibbons defined civil liberty as exemption from the arbitrary will of others when he is governed by equitable laws established for general welfare of the society. He did not explain the Catholic principles by which society is to be ordered as to ensure this general welfare, a theme of the popes repeated over and over. Specifically, Gibbons made no mention of the teaching of Pius IX as contained in Quanta Cura in the syllabus, signaling a break with the words and the spirit of the papal teachings. Gibbons indicated he would not change the Establishment Clause nor the Free Exercise Clause. He established the position that the American Catholics have held to this day, so that if Catholics should gain the majority in the community where freedom of conscience is already secured to all by law, their very religion obliges them to respect rights thus acquired by their fellow citizens.
Now you can imagine where he's going politically. So let's say a town has 60% Catholics in it. Gibbons is going to say, vote Democrat or vote Republican, but don't you dare start a Catholic party and vote Catholic. You can see where it's going and you can see what the game is all about. And to this day, there is no leader of any Catholic group in the United States, outside of Ordo Militaris Catholicis, who is in favor of a Catholic party. They all want you to vote one party or the other. And they are not it's almost as if it's not allowed that anyone become popular unless they follow that line. And they have a whole secret blacklist. They don't even talk about you. You do not exist. They don't quote you. They don't cite you. It's as if you don't exist. And we've seen that with Ordo Militaris Radio TV. A lot of people watch programs here and then repeat 6 months, 9 months later, the topics that AJ first covered with myself in some program, but cited body will they cite it because they just can't give airs, even though Ordo Militaris Radio 2 is given. So we see the same game. And I think an important point we need to notice in this doctrinal warfare program is what did Claire Booth Luce do and how it's being done to us. You'll have a non-Catholic convert and then become a leader of the popular lay Catholic world. Why is it only the converts are allowed to become leaders and native-born Catholics are ignored? That keeps pulling the whole church in America towards Protestantism and towards non-Catholicism, because you don't get the faith from someone who was born with it. You get the faith from someone who converted because he got a financial advantage. And you name the leaders out there, they're all converts. You name any of your famous Catholic leaders on social media who are laymen, nearly everyone is a convert or a revert. Why is that? No one's native born.
Yeah. And yes, I noticed my inbox on the Catholic Party is getting full, but it's just more of the same Republicans coming over and wanting to infiltrate us. Like, no, no, no. So if you haven't heard back from the Catholic Party, there is a reason. I am keeping the infiltrators out of the party.
Yeah, if you want to be a member of the Catholic Party of America and the Republican Party and the Democratic Party and something else, then, you're not serious. I think that's pretty much. And if you claim you're for the social reign of Jesus Christ, but you don't want to vote for a Catholic party, yeah, okay, you say a lot about yourself too.
Yeah.
And so, I don't want to hear all those people, you have to vote Republican. Where are they? Yeah. Who's like, Barrett's going to save us? Remember all those? It was just a year ago. Barrett's going to save us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And AJ and I were the only group that called Barrett out for what she was and exposed her. And we were attacked viciously for that, but we were 100% right.
Mm-hmm.
A good Catholic girl from New Orleans never goes to a Masonic university.
Mm-hmm.
It's just obvious.
Yeah. And I want to close it with this last paragraph, which exposes everything we see and hear from the pulpits. In America, while the government was not granted the power to dictate what the priests ought to preach, the opinion of the societal elite certainly did dictate what the priests could or could not say. In consonance with American ideology, real power rested in society at large, and those with the most real power were those in the commercial class. Gibbons had close association with these elements of society. Being a bright, young, rising star in the Catholic Church, he could ill afford to anger these people because they had a vested interest in maintaining the American ideology with all that entailed.
Mm-hmm. And how true this is. Before I began my vocation, I was discerning, maybe become a diocesan priest. And I went down to the Diocese of the Virgin Islands because it was recommended to me by Father Peter Stravinkis. And who was there? Bishop O'Malley. And while I was there, I found out that who was the biggest donor to Bishop O'Malley for his Catholic schools? It was Hess Oil Company. Well, years later, I found out that Hess Oil Company is run by a Jew. Why is he giving money to Catholic schools? Mm-hmm. And probably to get a curriculum that was not Catholic. It's pretty obvious. And he continued to be a big donor to Cardinal O'Malley once he became Archbishop of Boston.
Mm-hmm.
So these alliances between the non-Catholic mercantile class and the liberal bishops in America are strong, and that's really who's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we have the Gordons out there, Timothy Gordon and his brother Dave Gordon. They're all doing these Americanist shows, doing Americanist essays. We have all these other talking head Catholics doing Americanist programs, Michael Wars, Christine Niles at Church Militant, praising, we got to push for the election reforms and all this junk. Everything Americanism. Everything pushed by Claire Booth, Luke, Henry Robinson, Moose, Archbishop Gibbons, Archbishop Ireland, everyone.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on this program from Ordo Militaris Radio TV. And who are the other personages we're going to cover in this series exposing the doctrinal warfare against the Catholic Church?
Well, we open up the front of the box. Now we're going to get to John Courtney Murray. And that is going to be a lot of reading, folks. Like 6 parts of the book are John Courtney Murray. So
he was the big Jesuit that was used to architect Vatican II. and change the whole way that the Vatican runs itself. So stay tuned.
Yep. This is Order Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.